there'll be life. Now, what's interesting is we move into the specifics of this chapter, a chapter that, as I said, is seen as all-inclusive, the way that it's kind of laid out here, with God's pronouncement at the beginning and the end. So we move into the specifics of what it was that was destroying all these nations. It wasn't warfare. It wasn't tribal feuding. It wasn't some natural disaster, earthquakes or hurricanes. It wasn't nuclear fission. It is what has always destroyed civilizations and societies throughout history, sexual immorality, which it may as well have been nuclear fission, because sex is just as potent and just as destructive as nuclear fission if it is not contained in its proper place. God gave human beings this powerfully intense, deep-rooted desire so as to produce a binding force between a man and a woman committed to one another in God's ordained institution of marriage. In the second chapter of the Bible, right at the beginning, God created and blessed the institution of marriage, as well as laying out some pretty simple instructions. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother, be joined to his wife. They shall become one flesh. They were both naked, the man and his wife, and they were unashamed. It is within that context that God placed sexual intimacy. Within that context, it will provide a growing bond between a husband and a wife, producing a oneness as God has ordained. Within marriage, besides just being pleasurable, sex is very productive in many ways besides just producing children. It's very productive emotionally, socially, physically, generationally. There's multiple benefits. But outside of that God-ordained relationship, sexual intimacy is very destructive. Not that it isn't pleasurable. Of course it is, otherwise people wouldn't do it. But it will not produce life, as is being spoken of here. It will produce a downward spiritual spiral of death, physically, emotionally, socially, generationally. As much as two human beings may want to try and make what God created to only be productive within a male-female marriage, as much as people want to take it outside of that context and make it work, unless somebody wants to just close their eyes and not look at the world around them, the truth, all you need to look is no further than our country to see the results. Every person listening to this, whether you are here or on the internet, I am sure has been affected in some way or another by sexual immorality, adultery or fornication at some level. Every person. And while it is not something people like to talk about, the truth is, in the long run, it does not produce positive results. And it is destroying families and killing our country. Fornication, adultery, homosexuality, transgenderism, while it may produce momentary pleasurable experience, there can be no growing pleasurable experience outside of biblical marriage, because sex has not been designed to grow in that way, in its fulfillment, excitement, intensity, and pleasure outside of that relationship that God ordained. And so God speaks directly to the specific sexual relationships that the pagan nations were involving themselves in, destroying themselves. It destroyed them. These were lawful, these were their lawful relationships.